All right, in this lesson, we're going to talk about something you already know, whether you know what it's called or not, and that is the zero product property. So we're going to be solving quadratic equations, but you need to understand the zero product property as we get into solving trinomials. So we're going to start in things that are already in factored form and apply the zero product property to that. So in the previous sections, we've been able to solve for by using square roots. We add one to both sides and then take the square root of each side. So here we're going to do it with a factored form to get two answers that aren't just a plus or minus of the same number. So the zero property states that basically if you have two numbers and a times b, if either one of these is zero, then the whole thing equals zero. Hence the zero product property, zero meaning zero, product meaning multiplication, so anything multiplied by zero is zero. All right, so to solve for by using the zero product property in a factored form, which means we have two parentheses, so they're already factored out, we would set each of these equal to zero. Okay, so we are going to start for this section. We're basically starting with steps 3 and 4 here. In the second part of 10.4, we are going to do step 2, and then finally step 1 would be all 4 steps included. So we're going to start with some problems that are already factored, and then show you how we're going to figure out the answers to those. Most of these are going to have two answers, but we're using the zero product property to do that. So since we are going to be already in factored form, it's very simple. All we do is we're going to set each of these two factored forms equal to 0. So in this case, x plus 3 and x plus 2, set each of them equal to 0, because if either of these equals 0, then the whole product is going to be 0 as well. So in this case, x plus 3 equals 0. Subtract 3 from both sides, you get x equals negative 3. And then we have x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 from both sides, you get x equals negative 2. So in this case, our answers are x equals negative 3 and x equals negative 2. This would be where they cross at the, if we are actually graphing the parabola, we'd figure out the vertex, but they are crossing at these 2 points right there. We are not graphing these necessarily. All we are doing is solving where they would cross the x-axis. So on these two examples, they are, again, already factored. This would be a trinomial. If we FOILed this out with our box method, we would have x squared plus something and something. But they're already factored, so we're just applying the zero product property to solve for this equation. So we are going to set x plus 7 equal to 0. And we are also going to do x minus 4 equals 0. And then we're solving for both of these. We're just going to undo these equations. In this case, they're both just one-step problems. So we subtract 7 from both sides. So x, positive 7 minus 7 equals 0. 0 minus 7 equals negative 7. So that is one of our answers. Add 4 here. X equals 4. That's our other answer for this equation. So over here, again, they are already factored out for us. So we are going to set each of these equal to 0. So I'm going to set 3y minus 5 equals 0, because if this whole thing equals 0, then no matter what this is, it's being multiplied by 0, it equals 0. So I'm going to go ahead and solve that. I'm going to undo this equation by adding 5 to both sides because I'm solving for y. 3y equals 5. Then we're going to divide by 3 to get 1y by itself. So y equals, we can just leave that as 5/3. Or if you want to write it as a decimal, that's fine too. So 5 divided by 3 gives us 1.6 repeating. Sometimes I do like to have decimals, especially when we are graphing, to be able to plot that point on the number line. Sometimes it's just a little easier to see that. So that's our first answer. Then we have to set y minus 2 equal to 0. Solve for that. So we add 2 to both sides. So y equals 2. So our two possible solutions are 5/3 or 2. So pretty straightforward. They're already factored. The next section we are going to have to factor first. So there's a little more work involved. But for this, just easing into it, just get used to, hey, when we're asked to being solved, or we're asking you to solve for these equations, then when they're already in factored form, just set each of them equal to 0, and you are good to go.